Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to talk about planning. And I would say that there are two types of planning, and the first one is positional planning and the second one is weakness planning, or a plan on creating a weakness. This could be an isolated pawn or doubled pawns, as you know, backwards pawn, or just weak squares. It doesn't matter. This is a weakness planning. And positional planning is, for example, if you exchange one of your bad pieces for opponent's good piece, and then you're left with a good piece against a bad piece, and this is a positional plan. So today we're going to go over positional planning. Okay, so let's see our game. We're not going to go through the opening, we're just going to stop at our critical moment, which is here. Okay. So now guys, stop for a minute, pause the video and think about which pieces are good and which pieces are bad. Okay, so we can see that basically all of these knights are pretty active, they're controlling some central squares and they're really helping both sides. So yeah, they're not bad, right? And if we look at the light square, the bishops, they're also both pretty fine. Maybe black's bishop is a little bit better on this diagonal here, but they're both fine, right? But now let's look at the dark square, the bishops. We can see that white and black both have pawns on the dark squares, so it means that the dark square, the bishops, are probably going to be pretty bad, because these pawns are blocking them, right? Now you might say that black's bishop is really passive because of this last move e5. Now it's looking at this pawn and doing nothing. But this is actually not true at the moment. If black was on move, for example, if white does something, black would just probably exchange everything here on d4, and this bishop is not that bad anymore, right? It's doing something on this diagonal after the knight moves. But as white, our goal is actually to make this bishop really bad. Now pause the video and come back with a plan in this position. Now our goal here as white is basically to be left with a good piece, for example one of the knights, against a bad piece here blocked by the pawns. Because you of course want to have an active piece, not a bad one, right? So that's why you want to keep this pawn here on e5. But now how do you do this? Player with the white pieces here took on e5 and black recaptured with a knight. Maybe it was better to recapture it with a pawn, but that's alright. He did it with a knight. And now we can see that white exchanged one pair of knights, and here this is a critical moment. You can see that our bishop here is not doing much, and this knight here could be a pretty useful piece, right? And that's why white exchanged it off. And it looks pretty weird just giving your bishop like this, but like I said, this knight could be pretty useful more than our bishop, so that's why he took it. And most importantly, he wanted to exchange as many pieces as possible, so black is going to be left with this bishop here. So here we kinda did our job, right? We exchanged some pieces, we kept this pawn on e5, making this bishop really passive, but still black has this light squared bishop, which is pretty good at this diagonal, right? Better than our bishop. So what do you think white played? White played bishop to e4, exchanging this bishop and putting his knight on a very good square. This is e4, and that's because again it's blocking this pawn from ever going to e4. So our plan was basically to put a piece here or a pawn, doesn't matter, just to keep this pawn here. This is very important in this position, this is just crucial, and this position here is just strategically lost for black because of this very good knight and this very bad bishop. So here black had to move. He moved to e7, which doesn't really help him because this bishop is still very bad here. And okay, white took the pawn here on b6, black recaptured, and now it's really crucial to find a move that just wins the game. Can you find it? That's c4. Now this move is very beautiful and you just have to see it because again you're fixing this pawn because it's on the same color as this bishop, right? But this is not the only point, of course. You also create a space for your knight and an outpost here to jump on, or for a rook, and this is just a beautiful position for white. I mean, who wouldn't want to have this position with white? Rooks on the open files, a very good knight, and also a solid queen, you know. So here black just went and fighted for a file, but that's really not a problem for white here. He just played knight to c3. You know where this knight is going, right? To an outpost. Knights always want outposts, so this was a very reasonable move here. And the black played f5. Now he wanted some action. He probably wanted to play e4 and get more space, and then just put the bishop on f6, and this bishop would be pretty good here, right? So white had to stop this, and again he just kept this pawn on this e5 square, and that's exactly the right thing to do. He played e4. This is really amazing play by white here, really good understanding of the position. So black took the rook here, white recaptured, and f4. Now black is basically a piece down because this bishop is just doing nothing and knight is just a beast, right? Also the rook. So this is just bad news for black. And white played queen to g4, okay, to a pretty good square. Black played bishop to d8, and we can see knight to d5. This square is really the weakest square in black's camp, I think, and it's really the best square white can use. So black played queen to f7, and we can see that white just activated the rook. He wants to activate all of his pieces, he wants to have all his pieces in the action. He doesn't want to miss any opportunity, so he plays rook to a8. And we can see h5, pushing away this queen. He went to d1. We can see queen to e6 and f3. Just not letting black activate here by the means of something like f3 or anything. This is just a very good move that stops any threats against white. And black played g5, again trying to get active, trying to play g4, and white played h3, just saying, no, you're not going to attack me, I'm just going to slowly choke you or something like this. And this really happened. So black played queen to f7 and b3, and we can see that after queen to g7 there was a possibility of white, for example, taking the pawn, right? And when black recaptures, he could take the bishop. But he didn't want to do this. He didn't want to complicate the position because now okay, this is still probably winning, right? But you know, he didn't want to have these complications, because in the queen endgames there's always a possibility of perpetual check, and there are also, you can see here, possibilities of just black giving a perpetual check. So yeah, he really didn't want to complicate this position, and that's why he just retreated his knight. And what is the point here? We can see that here, a move ago, this queen wasn't very good, right? I mean, it's not doing anything that great, and this knight is of course very well placed, and also the rook, but we also want our queen to be to be on a very useful square to just win the game. So that's why he moved the knight away to create space for his queen here on d5, and this was just perfect. Now black played bishop to f6 because of course we're attacking the bishop twice now. That's why he moved it. And we can see queen to d5. Again guys, weak squares, like we talked about in 2 videos now. This is a weak square in black's camp, and that's why white used it. We can see now king to h8 and the exchange of the rooks. And from now on, white is just going to squeeze black because he has no chance with his really bad bishop. And And white really has more space, as you can see. So white played queen to e6, just squeezing him, like I said, getting closer to the king. And black played bishop to g7. We can see knight to d5. White could have taken this pawn here, but you know, he didn't. He had bigger goals to just squeeze black and attack the king, so that's why he didn't take it. And we can see here king to h7 from black, and king to h2. White is not in a hurry, you know, he has everything under control. He can take this pawn at any time if anything goes wrong. So white is really not worried here in this position. Black played queen to d8, and we can see queen to f7, getting really close to black's king, also threatening to win this pawn here. And that's why black played h4, and we can see knight to e7. And now this is really dangerous for black. We can see queen going here to g6. Also maybe something like knight to f5, just attacking the bishop. You know, this is a really dangerous position for black, and black just couldn't hold it. So he played queen to f8, trying to defend, but this is just losing now because of queen to g6 check, and when black moves, we can see queen to h5 check, and it's over because black's king has no squares, as you can see. So that's why he would have to move his bishop to this h6 square, and now we can see a check, and that's over, right? So I wanted to show you this example because it's a very good example on positional planning and also planning for a weak square here, but the focus is mainly on positional planning to come into a position where you have a good piece against a bad piece. Positional planning is a lot of times harder than weakness planning because you really gotta understand the position and also the pawn structure. Next time we're going to go over weakness planning, but for now I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, drop a like, share, and I'll see you in the next one.